Hey, what's going on, guys? How would you feel about starting a new Trash to Treasure series? Because I've got this kit here, which is almost literally trash at this point. Now, I don't want to say any kit is ever trash completely because, you know, as it always goes with kits, it's always about what you can ultimately do with the kit, you know, to make it better. And that's what this series is all about. But anyway, here I have a Master Grade 1.0 Shin Matsunaga's High Mobility Type Zaku 2 kit. And as you can see, it's a bit in shambles, and because there actually is a slightly interesting, very short, not very lengthy backstory here for this, but I picked this up as it is, as you're seeing it now. This is how I bought it, but I bought it for, I think it was either like 400 or 600 yen about 10 years ago when I was in Japan at a secondhand shop that they had some hobby stuff there, and they had like a big bin of just like pre-built kits like this that they were selling as just like scrap stuff, and it was only for a few hundred yen each. This one, I thought, you know, I can maybe do something with that, so I picked it up for, yeah, about like $5, and I've had it ever since then. And what I want to do with this is kind of lean into the fact that it's missing a couple of parts and that it's kind of a old and busted sort of kit, and just make this into like a wrecked Zaku in space sort of vignette kind of scene, just have it just kind of there with it just kind of being like looking like it's been through war and destroyed and blown apart basically, and then just now it's just space debris essentially. So that's what I want to do with this. The first thing we need to do is probably just work on getting rid of some of the seams and everything, because it's just got seam lines all over the place. And the nice thing about what I want to do with this is basically just having it like as a wrecked Zaku in space. I don't really need to worry too much about modifying the joints and everything that would be required to get rid of all the seam lines. If I wanted to paint this up with like a really nice pristine paint job and have it as a just really nice clean build, because I'm going to have it look like it's destroyed, I'm planning on just painting it by hand. In that case, I can just basically seal up all of the joints and everything, glue all the seams, and then just kind of basically treat it very similar to like a Machining Krieger type of model kit, or like a more traditional model kit where you just kind of glue everything and then I'm just going to hand paint everything in from there. I'm not going to keep the Shin Matsunaga coloring for this. I'm not really sure what color scheme I'm going to go with yet at this point, but for now we can kind of get started on the kind of prep work of just making the kit kind of look good, or good enough as it is, and then we can get to the damage and weathering and the painting and everything else like that. And that's going to be kind of the extent of it, and how everything's going to be kind of mounted so that, again, like it looks like it's like floating through space. So all right, let's get into it. So let's go ahead and see what we got here first, and then we'll see what we can do with this. As you can see, a bit of a mess. We got a thruster bell, which is one of the thruster bells here from the legs, I guess, but I'm not exactly sure which one. As you can see, we've got one, and then we're missing, I think that's like a little vent or something that's supposed to be right there, but a couple of the thruster bells here around the lower legs that are missing. The ones are there on the backpack are still there, and we've also got the hoses missing here from the sides of the legs. The shoulder armor, let's see, we've got two different versions of the shoulder armor, it looks like, and so I guess I can choose between those which one I might prefer, but we don't have any of the spikes, so the spikes are all gone. As for the hands, what you can see, what we've got on here are like the polycap material fixed pose open hands, which are just bad, so those are definitely going to go. I'll just swap out some different 1/100 scale hands. Doesn't really matter too much what those are going to look like, because again, they're going to be kind of damaged. Oh, I guess we do have one of the articulated hands here, but yeah, that's kind of no good. So got the alternate piece here for the front of this shoulder right there that doesn't have the little vent details, so we're also not going to use that. And this piece, which I'm really not sure where this is meant to go, I probably need to look at the manual, to be honest, to kind of familiarize myself with the base build a little bit better. But I mean, what you can see is that we're also missing one of the knee armor pieces right here, and then the head, of course. So we've got much of the head for like the outside parts of the head. See, so basically we have, yeah, all of the exterior shell minus the antenna minus everything on the inside, the clear part, of course, obviously the vent detail here at the snoot, and then obviously the hoses. So it's probably going to have a blown up head. I'll use this and maybe like parts of it and have it just kind of like flying off so that it's sort of recognizable as the head, but it's going to be pretty much blown up. Other than that, as far as like major damage or major points of concern that I can see at the moment is like, for example, the polycaps here in the elbows. You look right there, that like dark colored part at the top of the elbow joint is just a polycap, but the bottom part is not. I think that's a regular plastic piece covering that, but I don't like the fact that there's exposed polycaps, so I might want to maybe do some modification with that just so that there's not any polycap showing. Otherwise, everything else is kind of fine. The only thing that I'm probably going to need to add to this, aside from just like general scraps and broken pieces here and there, just again to kind of make it look kind of more broken apart, is I think I'll probably have to add, actually come to think of it, I have some leftover tube parts from a 2.0 Zaku kit I could use for like the piping bits. I could use for like one of the legs that could have one kind of broken. I could probably make an entirely new one with what I have left over for that part. So it'll have this broken off knee. I'm not sure if I'll have anything else like blown off entirely from the legs, but I'll maybe have like one of the arms blown off at the elbow. That way I only have to modify one of the elbow joints, as I was talking about there. That just saves me that, and I mean, just based off of, you know, what I want to do with the build overall, I'm fine with just blowing off one of the arms entirely, I think. So that's probably going to be the main points of damage, is that the head's going to be exploded, one of the arms is going to be blown off, and then we'll probably have to make some heavy damage here around the knee as well, just since it's missing the knee armor entirely. We'll just make it look like that was also just blown up, and then there'll be plenty of other wear and tear. There's a couple other little bits in here. I honestly don't even know where this piece goes. This looks like it goes like somewhere on the backpack or something, but I'm considering that it's got a little blue piece in there. I'm thinking this is actually from an entirely different kit. And then we do also have one of the ammo drums here. I could put this on the back skirt, or side skirt, just because it makes sense that it would have an extra one, but the weapon, so we'll maybe have it so that this arm, the right arm, the weapon holding arm, is the one that's blown off. So then it won't have a weapon, that's fine, but it will have the extra ammo pack here on the side. That makes sense. And then so I only really need to worry about the left hand, and I'll maybe just get like an open left hand from one of the builder's parts sets or something like that to replace that hand there. So for the time being, what I'm going to work on right now is just getting any of the parts that I am going to be keeping on here, like the shoulder armor, this bicep armor, this lower arm armor, just getting rid of the seam lines and just kind of some general cleanup, like I said, just to kind of make everything look, you know, as good as I can with how I'm going to keep it here at the moment, and then we can get in and do some of the more heavy damage on it. Thinking about what I'm going to do here for modifying this elbow joint, there's really not a whole lot of polycap that's showing there, to be honest. It could just kind of sand the mold line out of that and it would look kind of just fine, because again, it's going to be in like this wrecked space state and it's really not going to be all that noticeable, I think, but I think I figured out a pretty good way to go about that. So this is really what we have here, just this polycap, which fits in between these two pieces here for the upper arm, and then that plugs down into the lower arm. Now it is a double joint, so you have that joint right there, and then this part right here also turns. Now for the purposes of my build, I really don't need a double joint, so I think what I'm going to do is just these rounded parts here also is kind of ugly looking, so I'm just going to cut this off so this is just flat on the bottom, put a piece of plot plate in there that fills kind of the inside part, and then so we'll have to stack it, so there's like an inside piece and an outside piece that just makes this flat here on the bottom, and then just drill a hole in that, and then we have our hole here, stick a rod of plastic or brass or whatever I want to use for that just between that, and so it's just pinned together like that. This kind of newly slightly reshaped upper arm piece and this lower arm piece will just plug right onto that, and then that'll still give us a single point of articulation, which is plenty for what I need for this particular build. So that'll be what I'm going to do here for this arm, seeing as how this one is for the right side and this is where I want to have the arm destroyed. I'm just going to kind of blow it up a little bit. I think what I'll do is still have this arm sort of there, but have it sort of like floating so that it's blown off but still like connected via like a couple of wires kind of pieces, and then we'll have to have like this all just kind of like with the head, where it's like mostly damaged and almost unrecognizable. But I'll tell you guys, just one of the things that I'm enjoying about this, just after just getting started working on this build, is just the fact that I didn't build this, so I'm very unfamiliar with it. So I kind of have to disassemble the kit, familiarize myself with it at the same time, and then kind of fix what I need to fix. So like here, just for the upper arm, just gluing that seam on there, for example, because I'll have to glue that, and then I'll have to like sand everything as well. So there's a number of seam lines kind of all over the place. So I'll just continue on this process of just kind of disassembling everything, working on the seams, putting it all back together, and then we'll come back and take a look at how we're gonna go about the rest of the damage. All right guys, so I got it to a point now that the seams are pretty much taken care of for the most part, and I've got to kind of separate it out so that we can go through this. I can show you guys exactly what I'm gonna do going into the next step here. So the only real kind of modification that I've made to this so far, aside from removing the seam lines, will be here on the torso. So you can see right here on the chest, I cut out this part for the door of the cockpit. Now this whole cockpit part does open up like that on this MG, but I didn't want to open it like that. I wanted to make it look like the pilot had gotten out through this door. Maybe once the mobile suit was destroyed, you know, the pilot was still alive and he was able to escape. So I wanted to have that door open. So I just had to cut that out. That was pretty simple enough. And then I modified here the elbows, as I was just mentioning about. So for this arm, since the arm is going to be attached, I just glued this piece in here because it has a little bit of kind of like piston detail there at the back, which I'll probably preserve. But this part here at the front will probably be kind of cut up, and I'm going to do some more damage on that. So it's not going to look exactly like that. But for the time being, it's just sort of like a placeholder until I damage that up some more. On the other side, I just got a different piece, had to cut it down a little bit so that it kind of fit into there. Just drill a hole, use this peg, and then this just pegs into the lower arm there like that, and it's just a better looking elbow joint, and also doesn't have the poly cap there, so I feel like that's better for that. So like I said, the seam lines are removed, everything's all kind of sanded, all the, like the mold lines and everything, all the hard edges and all that, everything's sanded down pretty well, so it's basically ready for paint. One of the things, however, that I need to do is to re-scribe some of the lines. So just with a scribing tool, in this case, for most of the lines, I'm probably just going to use this 0.1 MadWorks scriber. So like here on the shoulder, for example, there and there, here on the forearms as well. Of course, we've got lines going here and here. So I need to go around and re-scribe some of the lines that just kind of got sanded away through the process of removing the seam lines. And I did happen to find one of the spikes here for the shoulder. So let's talk about now what I'm going to be adding to the kit. So this is all the original kit, and I've kind of went through my spare parts bin, and this is why it's handy to keep a spare parts bin. I just basically have a box that every time when I'm done building a kit, whatever leftover parts I have, I just throw them into a box. And so I went through that and kind of dug around, and well, one of the things that I had is a set of the Bandai HD builders parts for the spikes set. So I thought what I was going to do is just to add these new spikes on here using those parts. But then I found that there was one of these spike parts. Actually, it was funny because it was hidden inside the foot here. So as I had the kit in the bag for years and years, this had come off the shoulder and had somehow gotten into the foot. So as I was disassembling the kit, I found there's one of the shoulder spikes. So I had the idea to use this spike, which is from the original kit, have that on there like so, on this one here on the back. So I'll have to glue that on there, it's not on there yet. And then for these ones, I'm just going to damage this pretty extensively so that this kind of whole part of the shoulder will be kind of destroyed. So this will all be kind of cut out later. So I'm just going to cut all that out, and then so where these two spikes would have been, that whole section will be missing anyway. So I won't worry about that. It'll just have the one spike here on the back still remaining. So that'll be there. For the head, this is glued and needs to be sanded a little bit more here. Just waiting for this glue to dry a bit more. But I've got like a few pieces, and basically what I did here was just kind of separate out. So these are just all scrap pieces mostly. Just kind of separated them out for each section. Like these, I think will go good on the head. For example, I have these. And on a lot of this stuff, I mean, don't ask me what this is from. This is from some kit that had these kind of pipe looking parts. So I figure I can like put these into the head up in there to make it look like, you know, cables running from the head to the neck, because I want to have the head not only destroyed, but then kind of like coming off the body a little bit, as well as like adding this part, sort of like a cowl kind of around the neck. So I'm gonna have to cut and modify this a little bit more, but just to give some detail, since the head normally would be just right on top of here and this part would all be covered, but since I'm gonna have the head kind of floating off the body a little bit, just want to add a bit more detail kind of down to around this section. So I want to add this part onto there. The hands are going to be a big challenge for me because although I have lots of scrap hands and different things, there's nothing that's really quite right for what I need. So I need like an open kind of pose to make it look like, you know, the hands just like kind of floating in space, something like that, but I didn't have anything quite like that. So I do have these articulated hands, which I believe are from a 2.0 Zaku of some sort, although I don't recall exactly what kit these are from. But as you can see, they don't have the back or the connection piece, so I will have to modify that. The backs of the hands from the original kit don't quite fit on here. They're kind of too small, and I'm not exactly too worried about the backs exactly matching, so I'm probably just not going to use those. What I do have is these hands from the RE100 Ifrit kit, and these backs I should be able to modify to fit onto here. It'd be great if I could just use this hand and have it holding onto something, but I don't plan on having this holding something. I just want both the hands just to be open. So I'm just gonna have to modify the back to basically fit onto here, and then just scratch build just a little, just some sort of peg or something just to be able to plug this into the ball joint at the forearm, just something right there, or even just drill that out and not even use it as a ball joint, but just use it as just a straight peg into there, and that will be, I think, fine. So we'll just have to modify that a little bit. Another thing too is here on the thrusters. So there's 1, 2, 3 kind of little thruster bells here that are supposed to go in the sides of the legs, and then this one too, I don't remember offhand what's supposed to be there, but there's some parts missing anyway around here. There is one of those remaining, so unfortunately I don't even know where that goes, whether it be here on this side or here or here. Fortunately, I've got a lot of leftover, I've got a lot of Kotobukiya option parts here. So I just go to my Kotobukiya heart spin. So I got these like really big ones, which I think are probably too big for what I need for this particular project, but there are some smaller ones which should be kind of just about the right size for what we need. That, and I do also have some wave ones which are a little bit larger, and then there's also the Bandai HD builders parts for these as well, except the only problem with the Bandai version is that they're very detailed, and this kit generally is not that detailed, so it kind of wouldn't match really well. It would look kind of weird to have a kit that's like kind of low in detail and have these super detailed thruster bells out the side. The nice thing about these Kotobukiya ones is that they're pretty low on the detail, so I can use either some of these or some of the wave ones that I have. So I'll have to use some option parts for replacing these thruster bells here around on the legs, and then that part too, whatever that was, I'll have to again check on the manual maybe what that was supposed to be. I don't have the manual, I'll have to look at it online. So those are going to be some of the parts that I'm going to have to be adding to this. Lastly, on that topic, I do have some of these leftover pipe parts, just leftover from different 2.0. I think these are both leftover from the Zaku Cannon Master Grade 2.0 kit. Well, it's not 2.0. The Master Grade kit that's based on the Zaku 2.0 uses these pipe parts. So with these pipe parts, the pipe parts combined, I should say, with some wire and spring. So I've got like some of this here, which is this one is a 2.5, which is probably exactly right what I need for this. So this is a 2.5 spring, 2.5 referring to the diameters. This is a spring, as in like aluminum spring, I believe it is, from Wave. And so I'll use probably like a 1mm thick wire so I can make the shape and put this around it, and then feed these pieces over that, and I'll have to glue them in place because I want to make it look like they're just kind of like the actual hose is broken. I'll maybe make it so that one is intact over on this side, and then on the other side the hose will be broken, and then that will also kind of match this one here, which is already on the kit, because this one does have a spring going through the hose right there. And on the head, I think the head will be so destroyed that I probably will just not worry about putting any of these on the head, although I do have some somewhere in here. I do have some more pipe parts in the form of these Kotobukiya ones as well, so if I needed some smaller size ones to make some broken pipe on the head as well, I can do that. But again, I think with how this is going to be, probably just going to maybe have like some remnants of the cable here. Most of this is going to be, like I said, mostly destroyed. So let me go ahead and get to rescribing here out some of those lines and adding some of these parts on, and let's come back and talk some more.